There is one artist for every couple of decades that encapsulates what film experience was for a couple of generations. And I think for my generation and the generation right before me, Drew Struzan was the movies.
There's images that Drew has drawn that are burned in my brain forever. They'll never go away.
His posters are modern-day classics. That's not an opinion, it's a statement of fact.
It's not just an ad, you know, it's the first notes of the piece. It's the beginning of the story.
His artistic interpretation of what that story is in one image really made you want to run out and see that movie.
He is a storyteller, and that's what makes him very, very unique and ranks him with the great poster artists of all time.
And when you're talking about the best of the best, you've got Drew sitting right up there with those guys.
He's one of the first artists who's become a pop star, a rock star.
Myself and my other artist friends, we would just drool over his stuff.
And it just got your attention. It's like, wow, I want to go to that place. I want to be there. I want to be in that light. I want to be whatever makes you look like that. I want that shit around me.
You anticipate the new poster from Drew.
Almost anybody who's anybody in the film business wants him to do posters for them.
He's been such a benefit and such a kind of second sight to a lot of my films.
Everyone, arguably worldwide, knows his work. They may not know his name, but everyone's seen his movie posters.
He did the Back to the Future series. You know, Drew did Goonies for me. He did Hook. He did Batteries Not Included. You know, Drew really, came along for the long ride of the Amblin years and just made a tremendous contribution.
He does just a great, great job of bringing out the best in whatever it is that he's painting.
I had to almost live up to the art that we later were going to ask Drew to create for the poster.
He will inevitably influence every artist that comes afterward.
I'm a big fan of Drew Struzan.
It's beautiful work.
It's just great work, and there's only one. He's one of a kind.
Nobody else is Drew Struzan, I promise you.
There is nobody else like him.
He's the best.
He's a legend.
He's an original.
He's amazing.
He's part of the movie experience.
Having a Drew Struzan do your poster is almost worth making movies just for that.
We have a lot of original art here. You've done a lot of different kinds of things for us with all different kinds of demands. And then the fun part is that they've been all different kinds of scenes. You know, you get a something like this, you're getting into minor characters on a Jabba the Hutt's too minor a character, but it's still...
Well, it was one of the rare times you didn't have to paint Han, Luke, and Leia.
Right, or no laser swords.
So that was kind of nice for us.
You got to do fat slugs and crazy little Muppet-type characters and a lot of crazy musicians.
All of which, they're very memorable to us.
Yeah. Oh, I like that picture a lot.
It's the painting where I can show people my heart and my experience and my knowledge or understanding or passions or whatever it is. That's how I express it, and that's how I share it. And I guess that's what makes us human, is that we can share knowledge and wisdom and experiences, and painting is how I do that. They say I could draw before I could talk, and that doesn't mean I didn't talk till 15, but it's just what I do. It's what I've always loved to do. They told me I used to draw on the toilet paper and roll it back up because that was the only available paper in the house, you know. So, you know, you take what you can. If you don't know what you're lacking, it doesn't bother you. As much as, like we say, we need love, if you're never given any, you don't know what you're missing. You don't know you don't have it because you've never seen it. I didn't have any as a child. Parents didn't love me, didn't like me. They were afraid of me for some screwy reason. When I left home and got out of high school and said, now I want to go learn something. So I didn't pack my bags, I didn't have anything, I just went. I left and I didn't lose anything by leaving. They didn't want me anyway, you know. I actually went home for the end of one term and they locked me out of the house, so I never went back.
It was 1966. We were actually at a dance in San Jose, and we had both been drugged there by my sister and him by a friend of his. And I don't know, there he was across the room, and he was just really cute.
My life changed when I found somebody to love me and someone I could give love to.
He and Dylan met when they were teenagers, and they've been together ever since.
Actually, it started out at ping pong tables, and I realized that he wasn't going to make any kind of moves, so I just managed to hit my ping pong ball over to his table, you know, get things rolling.
I think of them as a unit, and I think of them as a single person in a way.
We both didn't have much of a home and a home life, and we were both lonely. And couldn't put words to it at the time, but it was two people in need of love, and we found one another that wanted the same thing and worked it the same way, and it's still the same today.
That was summer break when we all met, and he went back to school, back to Art Center, and he sent the first letter, had a portrait of me in it. That's, you know, that's pretty powerful stuff.
When you go to college, before you go to class, you go to the counselor, and they ask you the question you're supposed to ask in bars. So what's your major? You know, I said, what's my choices? I mean, I was naive. All I really wanted to do was learn art.
He went to Art Center for 6 years. And that school, that's not just a couple of little art classes. You're 6 days a week, you paint every day.
It was cheap at the time, but it was 100% more than I had. I'd go in the front door in the day and get some of class, and then the counselors or the accountants would come around and kick me out because I didn't pay. So they'd kick me out and I'd come back in the back door because it's how I'm going to pay eventually. I don't want to miss any of this education. So that's why I put myself through college, it's just slowly, and I'd sell paintings I did for homework to other students, and then I could pay for it.
Art Center was always supposed to be a school that teaches you to be a professional, and he really learned that lesson. But he wasn't eating or anything, so he had a lot of extra time, right? No. Starving artist that he was. No, seriously though, he worked very, very hard all through school, and I just think he has that ethic.
I used to eat only 2 days a week when I went to see my girlfriend, and 5 days a week I didn't eat.
We were so poor when we started out, and I worked at the county in order for him to go back and get his degree at school.
First year I was married, we had the baby. He cost $1,500. We got the best doctor in LA to deliver and care for the baby. I made $3,000 that year. So we lived on $1,500, a family of 3.
That was so hard, just so hard. I didn't make enough money for us to have child care and eat at the same time. So we spent a lot of years below the poverty line.
So far below poverty line, they didn't count us, you know, but we were happy as could be.
I think you don't become a master artist like Struzan without putting in those hours and dedicating that time and really, really doing what you have to do.
But simply, I just gave up eating because that's a waste of money. So I spent my money on paint instead of eating.
I know exactly what Struzan's talking about when he says that he had to choose between paint or food. You know, you make the obvious choice, you know, unless you're dying, you choose paint.
Just a little bit. I paint on both sides on the edges.
Unless you come from a privileged background, as an artist, you're going to literally starve a little bit.
Being an artist isn't a means to an end, it's a means to a means. And that happens even when you have no means. You know, you just, I mean, I can imagine, I'm putting words in his mouth, but I mean, you get pictures in your head, you gotta get them out, and you can't do that while you're waiting tables.
If Drew had a backup job, well, in case the painting didn't work out, then 99 times out of 100, you'll end up doing that backup job, because the art, doing that's just too hard.
To this day, I just squeeze out the littlest amount of paint from a tube, and I spread it very thin. Poverty produced a technique.
Drew found the thing very early in life that he loved, and he stuck with it. Just like, you know, just like he found Dylan, and he loved her, and he stuck with her, you know, and they stuck with each other.
After school, he worked very hard at trying to get work, and that was kind of a difficult struggle because nobody wants to give you work when you haven't done work.
I think he was smart enough to know that fine art wasn't really going to be right for him right there at that moment with a wife and a child. it takes years to become a recognized fine artist. You just don't do it overnight. And even though sometimes it seems like it is, it takes years, sometimes lifetime, you know. And he needed money and he needed work.
And that's when he decided, about a year after he got out of school, to take a studio job.
At that time, we were probably one of the top 3 companies in the country doing album covers. You know, just doing album covers, that's all we did.
With Pacific Eye and Ear, it was in the hands of a pro.
I started hiring illustrators because in those days, illustration, more than photography, was really desirable on album covers.
They actually liked unknown new artists because they do something different.
This guy calls and says, I'd like to come show my book. And you know, okay, sure, go ahead. You know, so guy shows up and it's Drew Struzan. And I mean, every time I turned a page, it was like, oh my God, this is like, I've never seen work like this. And when we got through talking, he said to me, well, you know, I'm having real trouble finding a job. I've got a brand new baby. I've got a wife, and I need to get a paycheck. And he said, if you'd hire me, I'll work 5 days, and you only have to pay me for 4 until you see that I bring value. And I said to him, I sort of got just like I said, you know what, man, if you can do the work like this book, you work 5 days, you get paid 5 days.
I thought that was heaven, that I could work and actually get a check and count on it at the end of the week.
And that, while it wasn't a lot of money, it was twice what I was making, so it felt like a lot of money. And even though we didn't have a life of luxury, I mean, at least we were able to eat.
He pretty much stayed to himself. You know, it was all about family. It was about him and his wife and his kid. And he didn't really socialize with us. I mean, we'd all go to concerts and hang with the bands and stuff, but he never did any of that. He was always at home with his wife and his kid, and we respected that.
This guy was so focused that he was oblivious to all of this kind of chaos, distractions, and everything that were going on.
We'd be having a brainstorming session or something, and he'd just be talking and adding to it, but he'd be sketching. And by the time we were landed on an idea, he goes, you mean like this? And it was like, oh shit, how do you do that?
A classic one is Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. I only remember it because people keep it alive. They keep talking about it. And I was just instructed to draw a picture of a man dying, is the way I recall it. So I said, let's do front and back cover. Let me do the front cover, a bad man dying, and the same man, what if he was good, and we'll put him on the back cover, and this is what it would look like if it was a good man dying.
Drew is the character on both front and back. He drew himself in there. That's him with the snakes around him on the front, and on the back, he's the peaceful guy laying in bed.
I was a huge Alice Cooper fan, huge Alice Cooper fan. And I remember when that album came, and I got it, and I loved it. And I was like, oh, it's that guy who did the artwork.
Alice was really neat. He was a nice guy. He used to come around the studio where I was working and watch me paint. When I did like Welcome to My Nightmare, they wanted to change the image a little bit. So instead of all the makeup and the bugs and the scary stuff, do something classy. So I said, okay, put him in a tux, you know?
It's not Alice Cooper at all, from what I know of Alice Cooper, the dark, sinister snakes and everything he did. He's a wonderful musician and a wonderful cover. And that's probably what made it work. It was such a left field kind of cover where he comes in so clean and immaculate and everything.
That was like somebody of real quality and a high degree of talent took some time to put his head into what my head as a 14-year-old kid would be in approaching this album. My sense of anticipation, my sense of what is this? My sense of what am I going to hear?
No doubt that Rolling Stone picked it as one of the top covers of all time. It's a beautiful cover.
The blessing of that job was that what I was doing was getting printed and it was getting seen.
I was the first guy in LA to really do creative advertising on a boutique freelance basis for the studios.
Tony was a huge part of what might be termed my success. He really gave me big breaks when I was young and unconnected and didn't know what was going on.
When they had a big album, the record company would buy a billboard on the Sunset Strip.
One day I was driving down Sunset Boulevard and I happened to look up and I saw a very striking billboard. And the billboard was, "Welcome to My Nightmare." And I almost like just jammed the brakes on and did a better look at it. And I went right from there to Tower Records to buy the album so I could find out who the illustrator was.
Turned out to be Drew Struzan.
Then I went to work, went to Seinegers, and I ran and I go, we have to find this illustrator.
So I called up one day, and I called up Pacific Eye in there, and I go, hi, can I talk to Drew Struzan, please? The Drew picks up the phone. In that very kind of quiet monotone of his, he goes, hello? And I said, hi, Drew, this is Tony Seininger, Seininger Advertising. I do movie art, and we'd love to have you do a movie poster. Oh, I don't know about that. I'm very busy here and all that. I said, well, let me tell you something. I think you'd be really good at doing movie posters. Oh, yeah? So I finally got him to agree to come over to the office and meet with me.
Movie business was notorious. They stole all the good talent because they had all the money.
So he came over after work one day, and I asked him, I said, so what do you make there at Pacific Eye and Ear? I can't remember the actual figure, but I was shocked at how little a man of this talent was making. I said, let me tell you something. If you did a movie poster, you could make as much on one job as you make at Pacific Eye and Ear all year long.
You could do an album cover for, $5,000, or you could do a movie poster for 20 or 25 or 50. They didn't care. They had all the money in the world.
And I think that gave him the impetus to leave and start out on his own.
I didn't need the steady job anymore because people were looking for me. And that was the next step down that road, is I went out on my own.
At this point, he had left Pacific Eye and Ear and was willing to, strike out on his own as an illustrator. And we gave him a movie called The Blackbird with George Segal. And I had this idea. I was always ripping off Norman Rockwell and other famous illustrators.
Not having my own style and being very young, I said, well, I can paint like pretty much anybody.
Can you do this style? Can you do that style?
Can you do like a Rockwell style?
I said, I can paint like Rockwell.
Yeah. He's like very laid back.
Drew nailed it.
And then the movie industry started seeing the work that was being done. So there's the old thing, you do the work, you get seen. And now they know that you can do the work, so they start offering jobs.
Once he got going, man, it was like, that's it. Everybody else just grabbed him.
So Drew Struzan and I worked together for almost 20 years. We started with The Blackbird in 1975, and I think the last painting we did together was maybe Hook in 1991.
Somehow he saw my talent early on when I was just in my 20s and gave me great work to do. I mean, actually hired me to do movie posters when I knew nothing about it. I knew how to paint, but I didn't know the job of working in the movies.
I was familiar with Drew Struzan's work before he worked on Star Wars.
I wasn't hired by George. I was hired by a fellow student, Charlie White.
It had to be in 76, 77, I imagine, that I met Drew. I heard about Drew.
He had a design studio. He was very entrepreneurial, still is. And he had that job. And so he designed the lettering and he designed the idea of the poster and everything. So only trouble is he was a wonderful airbrush artist, but he didn't do portraits.
As odd as it may sound, I did very few people.
So he knew me and that I did him, so he called and said, you want to share a poster? I'll do the robots and you do the people. I said, sure, job's a job, didn't matter to me. It was Star Wars, didn't mean anything at the time, it was just another job. So I said, I'll do it on one condition, that I get to watch you paint some of your part in airbrush, because I'd never seen an airbrush in my life, so I wanted to see how he did it, being the master of it.
We had I think 7 or 8 days to do the whole thing.
What was special about it initially is I painted the portrait of Luke and Leia in oil paints, and he painted the rest of the poster with dyes and the airbrush. So it was unique that there was 2 of us and 2 different techniques.
We had to really orchestrate how we were going to do it together, because he'd be painting in oil, and that was just really a riot. I had to do all the dry so I could spray over it. Oh, it's just...
We finished it, they submitted it to Lucasfilm. They said, that's a really nice picture, but there's no room for the billing block.
Legally, you have to have a certain percentage of body copy, which would be all the stars and et cetera, percentage to the title. Oh, I'd forgotten about that, and so we were way off.
We had to figure out how to make this piece of art this big.
It's not like today where you could kind of Photoshop it in.
So we came up with the idea, make it look like it's wild posted.
I wanted to look at used, like it's been around, the poster's been around for a while.
So we tore up the edges and painted the fence behind it, and I added Obi-Wan to the side of it and made it bigger and made more empty space.
I think made it a lot better poster, but it was a bit of a testy time for a moment to how to do that, to get all that type in there.
It became George Lucas's most favorite poster until I did the special edition posters.
It's very unusual as a poster, and it's still unusual as a poster, and I think that's going to stand out as an important part.
So that's one that's in our collection. It's one that I'm very fond of because it references the whole history of the way posters are used. Film posters come from a tradition of circus posters back at the very beginning, and it's a reference to that.
It was just a fantastic experience for both of us.
It was a great privilege to work with him, and it was a kind of an excitement. That was the first time I actually had the opportunity. I had a film big enough. The Return of the Jedi poster was a very iconic poster.
I think you're referring to the poster I painted for Revenge of the Jedi.
We did a teaser poster, which was Revenge of the Jedi. The poster stayed the same, but the wording changed.
It makes an image that sticks with you, touches you, impels you, and that happen to be objects that you're familiar with and interested in just made it the more so.
The poster really wasn't done for the title. It was done for, in essence, what was in the movie itself, what we were trying to portray in the movie.
You are unwise to lower your defenses.
Well, not having seen the movie and knowing it was Star Wars, I couldn't do much except, oh, let's feature Darth Vader because he's cool in the sword fight. Or the lightsaber fight. And that's all it is. It's just a nice design and powerful.
And obviously it was portraying, Darth Vader, and, it's the end of the entire series, so it was really about the confrontation between Luke and Darth Vader.
Combine the two things that I really always lean on in my work, combining two opposites again, power and beauty in the same piece.
A painting of Darth Vader, you get the feeling of pure evil and all the things that are associated around that.
We had done some work with Darth Vader, but at the same time, nothing that was quite that articulate.
There was a lightsaber battle between Luke and Darth. I don't know why I painted them the colors I did. I think because I thought it was pretty. It's usually most of my reasons for doing things. And it never crossed my mind that people would pick on what color they were. So it wasn't until years later when everything became so specific and everybody knew everything about every detail of Star Wars that they started to recognize they were painted the wrong color. And it became, one of those great Star Wars issues.
The iconic ones would have to be, the signature pieces that we've done. Certainly all the Star Wars Special Edition releases.
He did this triptych approach for the Star Wars films, 3 panels that, kind of describe the entire first trilogy. That is as iconic as it gets. It's staggering.
That was really when he had the opportunity to come in after these films had kind of sat in the culture for 20 years and take a fresh look at how you would represent them in a film poster.
One, Christmas Eve night, I get this call about 9 o'clock at night, and they say, we're coming out with the special edition 3 movies, and we'd like a poster for them. I always have my foot in my mouth, as you can see. So I said, you're making one poster for 3 movies? I said, yeah. He says, you're kind of blowing a really grand opportunity to do a triptych, do 3 posters that work together as one. It'd be really sweet, and then you can open, blah, blah, blah. Good idea. How do you see it? I mean, that quick. So I'll have to design in my head, on the spot, on the phone to George Lucas.
The idea that they fit together as a triptych was also really fantastic because it just kind of gives you this epic sense of what the Star Wars saga is about.
I didn't ever do a drawing for them. I never did a composition. I never did anything. I just started painting the first one. Then they picked it up and carried it away, and now I realized the second one I have to match the color, the intensity, and the design to the first one. But I don't have it here. So I had to do it from memory, and then the same thing happened on the third one. So that was designed on the telephone, painted without any drawing or design, and I had to match 3 paintings to each other without seeing the other 2 at the same time.
To put that all together in a very poetic way, it takes some doing.
And then, of course, he followed that up with all the posters for the prequels.
The next 3, he wanted to match the first 3. So then I wound up with that design with the frame, with the things breaking out of the frame so they look bigger and grander.
Well, they're grand, but they don't lose human scale. They feel more human than, I mean, some of these pictures get so big that you lose sight of the humanity of the thing, and it gets lost in scale.
While they don't work as a triptych in the same sense that the special edition posters do, it continues the style, so you've got this very consistent set that spans 6 films over a 30-year period.
So now he has all 6 of them in a row, and they look like they were all conceived at the same time.
We went with what we call the mountain of people in order to show all of the characters that are going to be in the new series, because they were very different. The same characters but different actors from what had been in the previous series. So we wanted to sort of expose that reality to the fans as the first image they see.
It's not just a question of what will that poster tell you about the film, it's how will it match up to your expectation of what you want to see? How will it kind of feed that excitement?
Episode 1, George, when he turned my artwork into the poster, he said that it would be the same in every land, everywhere it was advertised. That image would be the one they had to use.
A lot of releases are now day and date. That's one of the things that we pioneered with the Star Wars prequels.
It's in everybody's face, all over the world, all at the same time.
From a marketing point of view, you want one image that identifies the campaign for the film. And with Star Wars, because they're so universal, it made sense to have the one image be what the image was worldwide.
Everybody in the world was seeing my piece of art all at the same time, and that was unusual. That has never happened before in history.
Indiana Jones. We've also used a different style with him with Indiana Jones. Sometimes we've done the pyramid, but a lot of the times we've just done an iconic depiction of Indiana Jones, of him standing in a particular position with his whip, with his gun. And that's always very effective.
When I first began working with Drew on all the Indiana Jones movies, you know, the art just brought out a kind of B-movie sort of, but without being a cheap B-movie. You know, he distinguished our film, but he also showed that our film was based on many of the old Republic serials and all those old-fashioned, adventure movies that used to be made, decades ago. And he revitalized that kind of tonality with the drawings and the paintings he was doing for us, especially the way he would capture faces, especially the way he captured Indiana Jones's face.
When Drew came along and started to do the work, it really made a big difference. It focused attention on that character, gave him a nobility and a heroic nature, and frankly, made me look good. So I was a happy guy.
I have to confess, when I think of Harrison Ford, I'm often thinking of Drew Struzan's image of Harrison Ford, as much as the actor himself. I mean, I know what the actor looks like. I've seen him in almost all his movies, but he's captured somehow in my mind by that rendering that Drew Struzan has done and variations on it and all those many, many posters and images that he's painted.
He's done a lot of video box art for us, And then he's done book covers for us and other illustrations for licensed products. So it's wound up being a very broad involvement in everything that we do in marketing these franchises.
It's been enormously valuable to the selling of the movies that I'm in.
I think you got the sense that this was being taken seriously, but there was a true sense of fun to all the daring.
So when you look at Harrison Ford in Indiana Jones, you get a feeling of a rush inside you, that there's some action in this movie, that there's romance in this movie, that there's excitement, there's mystery, there's danger, all from a piece of paper.
That stuff made me want to go see the movie. It got us excited. It gave us a tone. It gave us something to cling to.
While the pieces have a consistency, they all have their own flavor according to the film, according to the things that we find fun in that film.
Drew's original poster for Raiders, I know they used the Amzell image primarily, but Drew did one of Harrison Ford and Karen Allen, and it's one of the best poster images I've ever seen. I believe they used it as in the overseas markets.
I really do believe the first time he had the freedom to create, to be really creative, was the Indiana Jones piece.
The Temple of Doom poster is one of the great posters.
I wasn't like set as the Indiana Jones artist at that point. So in Temple of Doom, the second movie, they had another artist do the painting, and I don't know his circumstance, and they opened with his poster, but within that first week, they called me and they just wanted to try something else for whatever reasons. So they asked me, do a drawing of what you'd like to do for this film. So I did one comp and sent it to them. They said, that's great, paint it. So there were no changes, no other ideas. That was straight up my idea, no interference of any kind from anybody. So I just painted it freely and with the confidence, because I had designed it, that I could make it nice. Sent it to them, and that's what the Temple of Doom poster became.
And that's when, you know, he developed a lot of different techniques for the visual effect of the poster. And that was to me, that was a really big turning point in his career.
There was a whole thing with that movie being, is it PG-13, is it for kids, is it for adults? And as a kid, we all wanted to see it. And that's really due a great deal to what Drew did, that you have this sort of terrifying image with fire everywhere and this guy with a horned helmet holding a flaming heart above his head with this maniacal glee in his eyes, and you know, in the middle of it, Harrison Ford giving this look backwards like, I got this.
And that was the one where he said, gee, we like that design. From now on, that's indie. That is the look. And from then on, it was the indie look.
Every little line, every little stroke is pushing the feel of the entire film.
Those strokes, those like, it's like almost like war paint. It's just like 3 strokes here and a glint of white here and something across the brow, you know? It's just like, really, you can't do that with a computer.
You know, that whole, you know, feeling of texture that he brings into his art, the feeling that you can almost reach out and touch it. You feel like you're going to feel the smoothness of the face of one of the heroines, Indiana Jones. You're going to feel the gruffness of the villains. And just the fact that it's so tactile, his art. And that's because he paints, he doesn't keyboard.
It's just polished. Like, and I don't mean polished in the sense of being slick. And it might be that little pencil stroke that's still in there, or that little, you know, not quite finished, you know, kind of a highlight stroke he did with the white. You might say, well, you could have rounded that off a little bit. You could have made that conform a little bit more to the line of this collar or whatever. But he didn't. It's just perfect.
We've had to live up to Drew's art. And I know, you know, when Drew did the last one sheet for Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and I saw that early picture, I showed it to Janusz Kaminski, my cinematographer, and I said, now you've got to make sure that Harrison looks as good as that picture. And because, and by the way, Janusz made Harrison look as good as Drew Struzan's artwork, with a little help from Harrison himself.
Some people accuse me of making him look younger, but everybody has opinions. I painted him as he looked. He just happens to look okay. It looks more than okay. It looks better than I'll ever look.
It was an ambition of mine that we acknowledge the age of the character.
We were completely recognizing that, you know, 25 years had passed and Harrison Ford, the actor, had aged, and Indiana Jones, the character, had aged.
I made him look like he looked, because that's honest. You know, I also believe in truth in advertising. If he was good enough to make the film, he's surely good enough to paint.
He's idealized Harrison Ford, and in a good, you know, in the best possible way.
It's not me, I'm just acting. But it looks like me. but it's invested with the nature and the character of Indiana Jones.
I've drawn him many times on many occasions, and there's not always reference materials from the movies that are appropriate for the concept. So I get into his character when I design one of the posters. I have his hat and whip and his coat and his pants and shoes and all that stuff because I often pose as Indy myself, so I have authentic costuming so that it looks good.
What he says about posing for the subject is true. A lot of people do that. But he does it especially well.
Drew has done Harrison Ford's portrait like 100 times. Like, I don't know the exact number, but it's way up there.
I've never met Harrison as many times as I've drawn him.
This is Drew Struzan. We thought we could tell.
God,
you
guys met.
Nice to meet you. Pleasure. Nice to see you.
Glad we had the opportunity.
You've always been so nice.
Hey, you've been very good to me. Very good to me.
Well, not as happy
Thank you.
as you've been listening.
You've done very well, Ryan.
Sorry.
It's nice to finally meet you. Thanks for the good work.
Yeah. Thank you for all you could.
Thank you. He's become as critical to the mix as John Williams, as many of the other important collaborators who come together and pool their talents to make these films as successful as they have been.
He's one person that can just take a portrait of a person and turn it into something really special.
Oh, the Thing poster, which I think Drew did overnight back in the day. I think he did it in one night, he told me, which was insane because it's one of the great, science fiction horror poster images ever.
I saw that poster and the sense of menace and the sense of madness and the dimensions of that thing with the light coming out of the head, it just completely encapsulated something that made the movie bigger. It doesn't represent the movie, it makes it bigger.
It's such a simple image, too. It's the man in the parka with the light shining out of the hood. And
these terrifying kaleidoscopic shards kind of coming out of this guy's face. And you can't quite see what's here. It's kind of blinding, and you don't know why.
He hasn't defined it. He's just suggested something, and it's such a great image.
I had nothing. They called on the phone and said, "We have a job, we need it really quick. You want to do it? Sure. What is it? Remember the movie The Thing from the 50s? Yeah, that's it." That was what I had to create with. So I couldn't show an actor or a location or anything. I couldn't show a monster. There was nothing to show. So I had to find a way of making nothing into something. So I did one drawing. They called and said, "Good, we need it in the morning."
He could do a thing like the Thing overnight and it'd be completely successful.
How he does that overnight, I don't know. You'd have to ask him.
All I thought about was, well, I won't get to sleep for 2 days. Which is okay.
It's the knowledge that allows him to do it, You're getting Drew Struzan. It doesn't matter if it took him 1 day or 70 days.
I lived 100 miles from the studio. They sent a messenger up first thing in the morning, like they said. I handed in the painting. It was in acrylics, which dry like that fast, because it was kind of watery effect and stuff. It was kind of wet. So I said, "Be careful, don't put anything on it." They called when they got it 100 miles later and said, "The painting's still wet." That's how fast it left the studio. So they had to wait for it to dry to put it under the glass to shoot it.
He turned it in the next day, and that's it.
I was young, too. Couldn't even do it today. I'd just fall over dead.
You really get a sense of not only the skill, but the kind of magic at work when you see his Muppet movie posters.
When you wanted a poster, you went to Tony Soniger, and that's what Jim Henson did when he made the first Muppet movie.
Jim Henson and his in-house art director, creative director, Michael Frith, came in to visit me, and they wanted to see some of the work we had done.
He says, "Walk around and write down the names of the posters that you like, and we'll call in those artists, and you can see their portfolios and pick one to do your poster." So he went around, wrote them all down, came back, and Tony looked at the list, and he goes, "This will be easy. They're all by the same guy." So I got the job straight away from Jim Henson.
Drew and I went to New York to Henson's Creature Factory.
Being the poor sucker I was, I had never been anywhere but LA in my life, so.
He was like a wide-eyed kid. It was really cute.
When you got there, there was always a lot of bustling going on, puppets being built.
We sat around the table, we decided what we wanted to do about the kind of the Run with the Wind theme and the guys in the car. And Jim Henson, after I did one, basically said, "You are the Muppet artist." He says, you make them look exactly like I feel about them. I photograph them, they look like puppets on a stick. When I draw them, they look like living beings to him. And so for many years thereafter, I had constant work from Jim.
Jim really loved Drew's work. I know that for a firm fact.
We went on to do, I think, about 4 or 5 more Muppet movies together.
Muppet Caper, then they did the typical thing. This time, let's do something different. Let's make it new, let's make it fresh. I know, let's do it photographically. So they posed all the puppets on a stick and photographed them, and they looked like puppets on a stick. So, hello, can you please draw our poster for us? So he says, we already had the photograph, we already have the concept, just draw it and make it, which became almost the call word for me. Give it your magic.
Drew has this ability to make things jump off the page and put so much more drama and passion into the appearance of them. So there's no argument that anybody with a camera could quite do what Drew did with his posters.
Idle, just a still, it's hard to sense that same kind of life and vibrancy.
You photograph them and they're balls of, they're socks. They're stuffed socks with buttons sewn on them, basically. You know, they're done by really creative people, so they fool us. But they're stuffed pieces of sweat sock. But interpreted through Drew Struzan, you believe, for God's sake.
When you see his renderings of Kermit and Fozzie and Miss Piggy and all the other characters in those different groups that he's assembled for the posters, you know, they're incredibly appealing and just as alive as if they were in motion and in action.
I actually just copied the photograph with my taste. Sounds very creative, doesn't it?
Jim was a very serious guy in spite of all his humor. I always felt he was the man with 12 ideas being developed at the same time. He was incredibly complex and a true genius.
He's a sweetheart, kind guy. He couldn't have made the Muppets without actually being that guy, and he was. He's just wonderful.
I don't know if there'll ever be somebody quite like him. No, there won't be. Too bad. But anyway, I'm glad he gave us so much of himself for so long, but it just wasn't long enough.
So it was really one of those grand experiences in my life, and one I recall very dearly, which is why I still let Kermit hang out here when he wants to. I just like him. He's fun.
He's done so many posters and things, you know, things that aren't my movies, but like Stevens with the E.T. poster, I think is very iconic.
He was like George, he knew the work, so he called personally, and I went over to see him, and we did the same thing. We played a little pinball and laid around and talked about movies, and says, I'm making this movie about an alien, you know, and actually what he wanted was a painting for a trade ad to run in Daily Variety. And they didn't have the creature yet or the kid cast or anything, so it was kind of a generic kid and a generic creature. But it got me connected with him, and then when the movie came around, I didn't get it. So I did the second poster and a number of other things after that. Did a lot of E.T. work. Steven didn't want to use photography of E.T. because he was just bits and pieces. And again, kind of like the Muppets, you know, if he's moving and talking and lit and stuff, he looks pretty cool, but just him standing there, he looks like a, you know, ugly little Martian.
He gave E.T. a beauty that really even surpasses the movie in the sense that, you know, people have to go out to see the movie or they have to put the DVD on in their player, but all they have to do is see a picture and E.T. comes to life in one frame, not 24 frames a second. Drew can bring E.T. to complete life simply at a glance.
I did tons of stuff for Steven on E.T. over the years. We're the same age, so we got along well, we communicated well, we understand well. Like I say, we both wear jeans, T-shirts, and tennis shoes. Still do.
When you think of the Back to the Future movies, you can't imagine the movie without it.
Think of Back to the Future and say, hey, remember that poster? I think everybody remembers that poster.
It's a single image, but it says everything you need to know about the movie.
It made you say, okay, this is a comedy. It's about time travel, but it's a comedy, which is new, and yet it's not goofy.
I find that to be fascinating that he created such a clean concept for such a movie that is wonderfully cluttered with all kinds of things shaken.
It just feels like you're catching a second and it's going to move on. But it's not necessarily a frame from a film, it's something much different. It's just a piece of a dream, you know?
Spielberg saw it and he said, my recollection is at least, he said, we got to give this to Drew. Drew will know how to make this into what it ought to be.
You can't just brush by stuff like this, no pun intended, when it jumps out at you. I mean, I think it's worth it to look at it and say, what is it about this that, you know, on a bottom line level made people go, oh, that looks cool, I want to go see that.
Because it worked so well with the first movie, when we went back to do the sequel, it was obvious, well, what do we got to do? We got to put Doc Brown in the poster as well and reprise the exact concept of the image. And we set up a photo shoot with Michael J. Fox.
I had lights and cameras and just like this, and I was directing.
I remember vaguely sitting for Drew and knowing that I was sitting for Drew and like how pumped I was.
I said, Michael, please move to the left a little bit. Chris, do that, you know. So it's like, I was nervous, you know, what am I doing directing movie stars? And then, of course, the worst thing happened. Right in the middle of me telling him what to do. Michael throws up his hands and says, hold everything. Of course, my heart dropped. Oh, great, I pissed off the movie star. I'm really in shit creek, you know. Walks over, walks straight up to me and goes, are you the Drew? I'm Drew. He says, I'm your greatest fan.
It was all the stuff that I loved, you know. It was all the light and the texture of the jeans. I mean, those ugly 80s Guess jeans never looked so good as in that painting. It's a thrill beyond just being involved in the movies to be a subject of those works.
And of course, you got to do it 3 times, so it was really, really grand.
Drew actually did a version of Part 3 that was just Marty and Doc, and we all looked at it and we said, you know what? 1 has 1 character, Part 2 has 2 characters. Let's put Mary Steenburgen in the third one and put her in there because it just is perfect.
It's one of those experiences that you would hope your whole life would be full of. But I had 1 or 2 of them now and again, and that was one of the sweet ones. And a neat series of posters.
Obviously, those posters are so iconic, and to be identified with that and to be the subject of those posters is I mean, I still can't believe it.
I mean, it's in there as much as the movie is, quite honestly. And that's what great poster art will do for you. It really becomes part of that film's history, its iconography.
To this day, I mean, I go like this, and people get all tripped out.
Oh, I love the Big Trouble in Little China poster. It's so awesome. His image of Jack Burton in that is wonderful. So much more evocative of Kurt Russell than a picture of Kurt Russell would be.
I had done, I don't know, maybe 8 to a dozen different compositions and drawings, and they did the typical thing. You know, we like this, this, and this, and put them together. And the composition came out of all the choices that other people made. And I just made it work as best I could.
To get me in a theater, to get me excited about seeing that movie, it's so much more effective than if it had just been a photograph of Kurt Russell or a picture of his face.
As a matter of fact, it is me. I was younger then. Kurt was never posed like that. It's me in the water. It's a friend down the street that's the girl posing there. Yeah, none of that was in the movie. It's all faked. I recall that I didn't particularly like it that much. I'm always surprised that people do. Maybe it's just the subject matter, which is what most people concentrate on anyway. Because the subject was fun, you know. But I thought it was a bit busy for my taste.
You couldn't get a more cluttered concept, which, I mean, cluttered in the best way. I mean, really busy and things going on and people running at you and, you know, in the middle of it, Kurt Russell being a badass.
Yeah, Big Trouble is such a great poster. Fuck, does he have the original art to that?
I don't know, actually.
No, I don't think so. I wonder who owns it.
We should find out and drive over there and beat the guy up and take it.
The Goonies too, with that perspective, that trippy perspective of looking down this chain of kids.
I didn't come up with the concept, an art director did at lunch one day. He did a little sketch on a napkin, literally. Gave me the napkin and said, this is what we want. So it was difficult in a design sense to have whatever it was, 7 kids or something going down in perspective, but hanging off of each other.
I was in my 20s at the time, but it's still like, I want to be like hanging onto somebody's ankle in that picture.
I remember all the neighborhood kids dangling out the bedroom window and trying to take that photograph. That's what I remember.
Oh, it's hard to get 7 kids. The guy at the top to hold on to 7 kids while hanging on to them. That was really hard.
He did a piece for Blade Runner that's one of the best things I've ever seen.
I mean, Drew's posters for Blade Runner, the re-release of Blade Runner. I know that he did it for the original release of the film and it wasn't used, and the fact that they would return to Drew's work for that is some kind of a testament.
It's fantastic the way it captures the tone of that movie.
Drew's Blade Runner for the reissue is the movie. It's just soaked in mood.
There's not anything in there that I saw that I would say, no, that doesn't look like, that's not gonna cut it. It's got texture to it, it's more visceral. To me, portraiture is something that just, it happens or it doesn't. And that's Harrison.
He makes me look good. That's a good thing.
I think it's the best art on Blade Runner, period.
My memory went back first to my son. It was really cool. We got to work together on a project.
I was working at advertising agency, and that was the job we were working on. And I guess all the cards came together in the few times that we've, had the opportunity to work together.
Rennie Harlan, the director, knew exactly what he wanted. He says, I want my poster to look like Indiana Jones. And my son goes, I think I can get the guy that did that to do it for you.
It was nice after years of watching him do it, growing up watching him do it, and then going to school and getting a job and growing up, and then one day you call your dad with a job, Hey, I got a job. Want to work on it?
I did 3 drawings. Rennie picked the one he wanted. I painted it. He loved it. He wrote a personal letter back to me, and he says, I think this is the best poster of all time. He loved what he got. He knew what he wanted, and he got it.
That was probably some of the nicest, most beautiful likenesses in a movie poster that I've ever seen him do.
The Star Wars films, E.T., Back to the Future, it's like an honor roll of big hit, widely acclaimed popular movies. Plus Police Academy.
I remember Police Academy as I remember most of my work. The painting I spent weeks standing in front of. And I love the work I was able to do. Police Academy 3 is one of my favorite posters. It's the perfect image for a comedy with all the actors looking wonderful, and it's a perfect joke. You know exactly what the movie's going to be about when you see the poster. And you can read what it's about from across the street, so it's the perfect poster. And Police Academy 4 was the same way with the balloon and everything. It was just fun to do. I love drawing the characters.
I was lucky enough to be drawn by him several times, and I couldn't pick a favorite. I'm just feeling grateful that he was able to do it with me and for me and about me.
Maybe I love him so much because there was no pain in the ass. There was no art director making me change it, no movie studio bugging me about it. I remember being happy doing the work.
If we do another Police Academy, Drew, you got to do the poster. That's just a request and a beg. You've got to do the poster.
I think Drew's work often surpasses even the films that he was depicting.
A lot of cases, Drew's posters, they're better than the movie.
How do we make people think that this isn't a turkey? Well, you hire the best guy on the planet to do your poster.
Oh yeah, sometimes that poster has almost captured the filmmaker's intention better than the filmmaker managed to do with the film.
And it's better if I not name those films.
I won't say which films, though, you know what I'm saying?
We will cite no examples by name because, you know, why be rude?
Masters of the Universe, okay? I want to see this movie.
Why be ungracious?
This movie, I want to see.
Not a fan of the movie Masters of the Universe, but damn if Drew didn't draw you into that concept.
I'm still waiting to see this movie.
If somebody took the trouble of painting it that good, it must be worth it.
I probably never will see this movie. That ain't the movie that the studio made.
He may not care equally about each film or each actor that he's depicting, but it always looks that way.
Part of Drew getting into the business by himself was learning the business side of it.
The business part of it, I had to learn as I went along.
Because it's never taught in school. So you go to art, if you do go to art school, at least in my experience, they don't really tell you how to run a business.
You learn, eventually you get wise to what's going on.
As I went along, I learned what was necessary to do and what part of it was the parameters of understanding a poster, what it was for, how to accomplish it, how to work with the studios and the art directors and the people.
So then he started to do it himself, and learned that, what he had been running away from all his life, he ended up doing.
I just don't find a whole lot of interest because it's a diversion, I suppose, to what I really want to think about.
Because you're so focused on the creative part of it, how can you just can't split your brain that way.
What side of the brain is that? The left side of the brain? The left brain thing, you know what I mean? We're all on this other side of the brain working, and you're all focused over here, and you're not watching all the so-called real world. The so-called real world over here. You're obsessed and compelled and driven, and all this is all falling apart.
Because you're into the work and you're not into, you don't know how to keep track of that.
If he had to do all those other things, he could have never accomplished what he accomplished.
People kind of consider artists kind of dummies in a funny way. They don't know, they're just art guys.
And it makes you vulnerable to the people that want to prey on that, because they can see how they can exploit that.
Well, there's a shady side in all businesses. Whenever there's money to be made, there's going to be a shady side of it. That just goes hand in hand.
Drew got taken advantage of in the early part of his career.
We didn't have a lot of guidance from wise elders, but we did find some individuals who were more than happy to take advantage of our naivete.
He went into supposedly a partnership, turned out to be not a partnership, with a couple of guys, a father-son team, who basically ripped him off for 8 years. And they were collecting the money and sending the invoices to me and to the studios, and basically keeping most of the money for themselves. In fact, Drew told me that the best year he ever had with them, he made $50,000. Well, we were paying $50,000 per campaign.
Drew and I were just incredibly naive about all of that business side of life, and we tended to trust way too much.
Well, it turns out that one of the partners, the son, had taken about 100 pieces of Drew's original artwork.
They didn't return them, or at least I thought they never returned them.
This guy always had a story. Oh yeah, well, the client still got it, or the printer's got it, and by the way, here's 3 more things to do. So he kept him busy all the time. Meanwhile, he's collecting all this artwork.
Well, it turned out that they did return them. I just never got them back.
They end up with nothing. You turn around over your shoulder and it's all gone. This thing that you thought you had.
The artwork, it'll come and it'll go, and Drew will create another piece because he's always got that going. But faith in humanity, learning to protect yourself by being cold to people you'd rather be warm to, I think that's very hard. And I think that's how people do such a big disservice.
But the great thing is when their money is gone, it's gone, but your talent is never gone, so you'll always be able to refresh and renew.
Yeah, it's constant. People who you wouldn't think that it happens to. Why? Because they're obsessed and dedicated and compelled, and they're over here focused, and they're trusting this person to handle all that stuff.
I stick no matter what I stick to my principles and my character and my ideals, and I stay with people and wish the best and hope the best in them until they cross a line of abuse that goes beyond what I can forgive. And he did that, and I just said, okay, partnership's over. I can't do it anymore, and I quit.
At that point in our lives, we thought we were facing the loss of everything we had worked for thus far. Our home, you know. I mean, really, it was sheer desperation. We knew we had one really good contact that had never much liked dealing with this other guy anyway.
I said, don't worry. I'll take care of you. I'll make sure you get enough work so you not ever have to worry about this again.
Thank God for him, because that gave us the work and the confidence that we needed to move forward. And everything blossomed, honestly.
Years later, these pieces end up at Christie's in New York for auction.
All at once.
All at once, and Drew inquired about the source.
He calls up Christie's and he says, hey, wait, those are mine.
Because this guy had kept all the work and now he was going to sell it. So Drew put a cease and desist on it.
And consequently, he was slapped with a lawsuit.
I was slapped with
Yeah. And of course, it was our friendly friend coming back to haunt us 18 years later and suing us for everything we had accumulated or ever would accumulate from the point that we left him forward.
Drew sued him back.
And the minute I stood up, it just shocked him so badly that the best thing in the world ever happened to the world and to him.
The guy had a heart attack and died.
Scared him so much he died. So, you know, a dead man can't sue you. And once the court took a look at what was going on, they just gave all the paintings back because they realized they were never his, they were always mine. So 20 years later, I got everything back.
He got back 100 pieces of original Struzan art.
It's an iconic pose for Han Solo. We don't get a lot of these, actually. I think maybe because it's you that it has a little tinge of Indiana Jones in it, which is the pose where he's kind of this serious, ready to go, iconic, tough guy look.
Yeah, well, he's the same guy in alternate universes.
Yeah, but it's the holding the gun the way he's holding it, and standing with his legs spread apart, sort of kind of ready to go. You know, it's.
We use the word I really feature in a lot of my work is iconic.
Yeah.
I really like the simplified, iconic figures that emphasize their heroism or their beauty or whatever main characteristic they have.
Well, I like the Chewbacca in this one too. He's very.
Yeah, oh, he's handsome.
Yeah, he's also got a very good, handsome look.
Yes, he does.
You can even make Wookiees look good.
He's got a wet nose. That's all you need.
Each job came from a different place, a different person, a different movie, a different circumstance, a different concept, a different idea, a different setting. So I got to be creative every time I got a new job.
He can work in any kind of medium that he wants to.
So it doesn't matter if it's watercolor or just a pencil drawing or if it's oil paint or a mixture of things or things that aren't supposed to go together. You know, it doesn't really matter. It's the end product is all that counts.
He knows every trick on the book.
Pushing a brush instead of pulling it. You ever see a house painter paint like that? No, you always paint like that. Do it that way, you get a whole different look. Maybe not good for a house, but cool for a painting.
It's a very uber realistic style, but as a result, it's rather stunning to look at.
Drew kind of stands alone in terms of his ability to capture likenesses.
His illustrated stuff was so good, there's been times when I've mistaken it for a photograph.
It looks absolutely photoreal, but if you get right close to it, it's not at all.
It's not real, and it's not photographic. You can't buy that camera that'll take that picture.
If I use the tools I have, all those tools we've been talking about, I can bring more understanding, more emotion, more personal understanding and feeling to it than just a photograph.
A picture of Sylvester Stallone as Rambo in First Blood would be fine, but the image that Drew Struzan creates just heightens it somehow. So his version of Rambo, his version of Hellboy, his version of even Tom Hanks in The Green Mile, those are all idealized renderings. And that's, I think, why they have such impact and why they're so much more effective than a photo would be.
There's a power and there's a there's a direct contact between that character and the audience. They recognize the virility of the character in those portraits.
You know, there's always that iconic moment, that iconic look that the character can have, and Drew knows what to use.
With Drew works from photography, but he can take like 7 heads that are from totally different scenes, completely different angles, and he can compose them into this amazing composition, and he can put in, you know, storytelling devices where there's action or romance or some sort of magic, and he can take all of these elements and make them feel like they're cohesive and they all belong together.
You get the whole movie in looking at that one image.
He never arranged anything on the page unless it had a reason for it.
There's always priorities in movies that people don't know about, like if you're doing a portrait, what size it can be, and then if there's a second person, they have a percentage of a relationship to that first one, and they have to be higher or lower or full face or all the way down the line. So there's a lot of necessity and contractual agreements and stuff that you have to conform art to.
You have to have a real conversation in your head. You have to have a special vision for seeing that.
And to take all those demands and parameters and contracts and then turn them in to a piece of art that looks like I just did what I wanted because it would be pretty is really the job.
I love that combination, the drawing and that layering of airbrush and the photorealism, then that abstract, the splatter and texture thing. I love that, you know? But it's not just that one thing. You're not just only just dripping shit all over the place, you know? But it's a merging of all those elements.
He has a very distinct way of working with the color and with his line.
Powerful, clean, sharp drawing.
Artists have said, how do you get it so sharp? How do you get your line so sharp? I said, well, you'll never get it sharp like that. You know, use a pencil, the longer the line gets, the flatter the point gets, and it doesn't stay sharp. If you draw on the side of it, it stays sharp forever, because you're drawing on the round, so you're just on that apex of the circle. And I do it like this, I do it like that, I do it like that, and I do it like this, and I do it. It's whatever kind of line I want, I can create.
It looks effortless, but it's completely the opposite. It's a very studied, incredibly mannered, incredibly precise style.
He has a definite style, but the style doesn't get in the way of the subject that he's painting.
I can make it scarier, I can make it more serious, I can make it funny, just in the design or the composition or the color or choice of gestures that the people in the, you know, all those things add up to a feeling. I just pick those things and make that feeling.
I really like what he's done for Frank Darabont's films, Green Mile being one of the standouts to me. He's gotten an opportunity to paint on a broader canvas, if you will, because each one of those films has a different signature. So it's been a chance for him to express a lot of different elements of his style. You know, The Mist was completely different from Shawshank Redemption.
As we were prepping this movie, the main character, played by Tom Jane, was in fact written by Stephen King as an artist, a fella who's done all that kind of illustrative art, has done movie posters, et cetera, and I thought, well, let's see, who do I know who's a really great poster artist? Drew.
Being a fan of my work, Frank decorated the whole set with my artwork.
So Drew was very kind in letting us borrow a whole number of things for that set, for that opening shot. And we proposed that Tom Jane was fundamentally Drew Struzan. Because if the character's going to be a poster artist, make him a great one. Why not?
He told Thomas Jane to come over to my house, to my studio, and have me show him how I paint so that he could look authentic in the film.
I learned a few tricks so that I didn't look like a complete idiot when I portrayed basically Drew.
Obviously, taken with the fact that there's this wonderful actor in my studio and I'm showing him how to do something.
And I remember trying to imitate him with my brush and him just going, oh, no, you know, you're touching the canvas all wrong. You can't do that. You know, other artists will laugh if they see you do that.
He was stupid like everybody else. This is how you draw, you know. No, I hold it differently. And he says, oh, we'll go, no, push it, pull it, you know.
It was really funny, you know. It was almost like learning how to play baseball when I played Mickey Mantle. It was like really hard.
I showed him how to paint with the airbrush and how to draw with the pencil and how to hold it.
And he picked up immediately.
He said, don't put it down and move, but already be moving, you know, as you put the brush down.
So I had to show him actually how to use a pencil and how to use a brush.
He wouldn't let me leave until I just got it just perfect.
I had utter confidence that he was going to look real professional, because he picks up on it faster than most art students.
At the premiere of the film, one of the first persons I see is Drew, and I had a big smile on my face, and Drew just comes up and goes, no, you, that wasn't right. It's like, oh my God.
He absolutely ignored everything I showed him, and he did it all wrong.
No, that wasn't it.
Yeah, I mean, he had it down when he was in the studio.
I played Mickey Mantle, you know, and I had months to practice, and I really nailed that. You know, I played a guy with a South African accent, and I really worked on that for a long time. But I played Drew Struzan working in the studio for literally, like, you know, 30 seconds, and I couldn't do it.
I was so nervous at meeting Drew, and you know, Drew is on the outside the way I'm in the inside. So, you know, for Drew, it must have been a shock. There's this fucking caveman coming to his house. You know, this bull in a china shop entering the, and saying fucking this and fucking that and shit and piss and, you know, and he was like, oh. I don't know if he was shocked or amused or whatever it was, but it was out of nervousness. I was really crapping my pants.
One day I got his number from, actually from Steven Spielberg's office. I called up and I said, you have Drew Struzan's number? So they gave it to me, and I called Drew out of the blue to ask him about this Shawshank art that I wanted done. And I found out he lived, you know, 15 minutes from here, and I went over and met him, and, you know, totally hit it off.
And the first Hellboy, I talked to Drew, and he said, what do you want? And I said, whatever you want. I said, I'm not going to tell you. And I said, I'll look at your sketches, and then I'll tell you which one I like, but I'm not going to direct what you do.
Drew is very collaborative. You know, when we did he did the Shawshank art, there was definitely some conversation with him about what the elements should be in the image. You know, well, let's grapple for what it is about the movie that we really, you know, that people really seem to dig.
And the first Hellboy poster, he captured the character, you know, the same way he would capture Indiana Jones.
It took images that had been sort of becoming iconic anyway over the decade that it had been, you know, released, and it just nailed that sort of iconic quality to the, you know, to the wall. It's like, oh gosh.
And he said, what do you think? And I was just, you know, crying in the inside, and I couldn't say anything.
He loved it, everybody loved it, but they didn't use it.
Some of the stuff that Guillermo del Toro and I have had Drew do in recent years have wound up being considered specialty posters.
To me, that artwork is special. So when it's not treated special, it's kind of, you know, bothersome.
They didn't use the poster. I used it as a limited edition for the fans. You know, I just felt it was a horrible waste of a great image.
When he finished Pan's Labyrinth, he worked on it, spent all his money and all his soul and all his heart on this masterpiece.
They refused to pay for Drew to do the poster. So I said, okay, I'll pay for the poster out of my own pocket.
Because I know the studio will never use what you paint, because it had gone that far. He just knew that they weren't going to do it.
Drew said to me, what do you want? I said, I just imagine the fawn embracing the girl.
I painted it and he loved it. You bought it. Hangs in his house. And they never used it.
I really scratch my head and I don't understand it.
So when I did Hellboy 2, it was the same way. He says, I know, they ain't going to use it, but I want you to do it.
I love the idea of a massive robot and a red poster and Hellboy this big. That's the movie. The tragedy is that all the posters that he's painted for me have not been used except in limited editions that I forced down the studio's throat.
Because the film industry is in this very weird state right now. It's in this weird flux in a lot of ways. And one of the things that I've noticed, particularly as it pertains to Drew, is how much they've gone to this sort of photoshopped, you know, kind of approach with their poster art.
In a lot of ways, what Drew has done is becoming a lost art.
A whole generation of people making their living by doing hand paintings, I don't see it. I don't see it happening.
There's nobody that does it anymore. I mean, there's some guys that there's illustrators, but that as a major force, contributing force in advertising and such, it's essentially dead.
These days, movie posters are basically, hey, this guy's in it, and he's kind of angry about it. That's a movie poster, right? Or if you're lucky, you get this guy's in it, and he's angry about it, and she's in it too, and doesn't she look great? And that's it.
Two big heads. Look at any movie poster. It's two big heads. It's a picture of this actor and a picture of that actor. They're photoshopped, you know, and they put the title on, and that's the poster. The other approach, of course, is the hip young cast standing in a line like it's a Gap ad, you know, giving the camera saucy looks, and it's like, okay, that's all. There's another movie I don't want to see now.
And that's a weekend thing. You know, you get a weekend boner, and then it's forgotten forever. This guy was creating a love affair that lasted a lifetime. The other shit is a one-night stand.
You've got these, you know, these computer jockeys slapping these posters together on their Macs, and that's what the studio wants.
Why should there be painted posters when you can make everything on a computer? Who the heck needs artists? This is just art.
They have their reasons, and they have their, you know, their marketing and their research.
They test everything. They test it to the lowest common denominator, and they ask questions, I'm sure, based on people's perception of the art that has nothing to do with the art. They'd probably say, does this make you want to eat more popcorn? Or whatever dumbass questions they ask that have to do with the bottom line.
Which one makes you want to buy popcorn more? And you're like, well, neither. And they're like, see? No difference.
They don't reach out to people's imaginations. They just reach out for their wallets.
That's the difference. The difference is money. It's all become a big economic crunch, especially in the entertainment industry. I mean, the first thing they try to do is save money in the marketing area.
Just expediency, and it's boring, and it's really a shame.
Let me put it like this. I'd always, whenever they made changes, I made the changes to the original art. When the computer came in, they realized they could push a couple buttons and make changes and move things.
Yeah, I look at the Photoshop today and I go, you know, I could just change it at a click of a button.
I hate when the technology becomes the thing rather than the tool. And that, I'm afraid, is, at least for now, what's happened.
I'm not a big fan of photos for movie ads. I like to see a painting. It has more quality.
I love handmade stuff. I love it when it isn't perfect. You know what I mean? That it's not totally cleaned up.
In a poster art that is photographic, all you're getting is essentially a still frame of the movie. So it's a lesser representation of what the movie is going to be.
I think people do appreciate it. Whether they know it or not, there's an appreciation of that kind of thing, that something's handmade.
At least you do something by hand, you got an original. If you do it digitally, you don't have original.
There's one painting, the original.
There's only one original, but a digital file, in order to be physical, has to be printed, and there could be thousands of them.
But if I do a painting, I got a painting.
When they see an original, they go, I had no idea of the difference in the life that's in the original compared to reproduction.
Well, you know, his art is done with paint. It's not done, you know, with the pixels. And it's wonderful that he's maintained that kind of integrity. And I have a bond with him because I still shoot on 35mm film, and I still project on 35mm film, and I'm still cutting on 35mm film. And so in a sense, we're both Luddite in that sense.
There was a time it was art. They trusted artists. They trusted people with the training and the experience and the accomplishment to say, you do this, you do it well. And now people just go, well, I have an opinion. Why not do that?
It's a process with a lot of people involved, and so things usually get shepherded to the middle.
Asking a studio about movie posters and Drew's art is like asking the Pope about condoms.
It gets so confusing, and I get so many separate people telling me because they think they have the power that I have to call an end to it and say, you know, tell me who I'm supposed to listen to.
You have to please so many people, and you know, other people are in charge and paying for that work.
It was like painting in the middle of Dodger Stadium with everybody having an opinion.
He's like a guy that is driving a school full of screaming kids. At one point he says, you know what, fuck you, I'm gonna stop the bus, I'm gonna get out.
It was just too much. Like I say, maybe the reason it was too much is I'm just older and tireder and just don't want to do it anymore. So, didn't draw any other conclusion then, well, that's it, that's enough, and just quit. Or retired, it's a gentler word.
Well, I groan every time I hear that he's going to retire.
Oh, he retired. Oh, he looks like he's about 15. I don't know. How old is he?
First of all, I feel old if he's retired.
Great artists never retire. They always want to work. Now, he might want to sit back and do a little fishing, you know, and I think he'd like to maybe sleep late, maybe enjoy his grandchildren or something to that effect. But a guy like Drew won't be like my friend who works for the town of Oyster Bay and at 65 retires and goes to Florida and never drives a cement mixer again. I don't think that that's the way it is with artists.
If I don't paint, I don't know what to do. I mean, I can go on vacation for 2 weeks to get the business out of my guts, but I take my drawing board and pastels and draw every day. That's how I express myself. That's how I fulfill my reason for being. No, I don't stop.
I don't have to answer to people anymore. Yeah, so it's kind of nice. I wish it for everybody.
I'm going to do everything within my power to keep him from being retired all the time, you know, because that would be a crime.
Like all of us, when we have decided we've had enough of that and want to leave room in our lives for something else, we make room for somebody new.
Maybe I'll be an actor after this. There was that boring guy. We need a real boring guy in our film. I want him. That's how it works.
He really just has moved on. But it's a loss for us, you know? It's not a loss for him. He's still an artist. He's painting, you know, he's painting every day. He's creating beautiful stuff. But for our medium, it is a loss that we don't have him.
Well, it's the end of an era.
It'll be interesting to see what he does, but obviously that means the quality of the film advertising is going to drop a few notches.
I just think maybe he'll do some stuff he's always wanted to do. And then all of a sudden it'll be, wow, Drew, why didn't you do that 20 years ago? And he'll probably turn around and say, well, I was busy doing a poster.
I guess he's retiring to paint his own imagery that he wants to paint now, as opposed to doing work for other people. And that's incredible. I'm looking forward to see what that will be.
I can't wait to see what Drew's doing. I would love to see his fine art.
He's going to put together this trove of post-retirement work. It's going to be amazing stuff.
And I hope people start to, you know, see the other work that he does that he's passionate about.
The stuff that Drew has done that isn't commission work is jaw-dropping. It's, you know, phenomenal art.
Most of them were done when I was still illustrating, so I was painting while I was illustrating. If I had a day off, I practiced my hobby, which was the same thing I did for a job. I painted. And these are the results of that. To sum it up, I would call it art for art's sake. It's not for advertising movies. It's not to explain some philosophy. This exists for itself, in itself, because it has value as itself. And you have to look at it with those eyes and with that heart to really understand what it's trying to give you and say to you. I willfully try to paint open-endedly, which is to say, I'm not telling you what to think. I'm setting up a circumstance that asks you questions. They'll turn out to be your own questions, and they'll turn out to be your own answers. Sometimes I paint part of it and I leave it for 6 months. And one day I walk in and I go, oh, I know why I like that. I do it and I don't like it, I change it again. I mean, I've changed this. I had her no hair, black background, this was orange once, this was red, which you can still see. She used to have a gun in her hand. I just kept changing it. Oh, it's too illustrative. Oh, it's not open-ended enough. Oh, it's, you know, it has to grow to have that kind of depth. And because it's not just an illustration of an existing thing, it's an invention. It's like writing a novel or writing music or a dance. You do the basic thing and then it changes and develops. It has its own organic, creative nature. So painting's the same way. When it sings and dances, then I know it's done.
It's still the same Drew. Yeah, he's just learning to focus on painting what he wants to, which was a difficult adjustment for him.
Yeah, it's pretty much whatever I want, but it's not whatever I want. Life seems to be full of things to do.
He's still trying to learn how to relax.
It's nice to relax a little bit and spend time with our family. We have our grandson that we take care of every day now, and he's just, it's delightful to be able to do that.
That's my grandson. He's the center of my life at the moment.
He and Dylan, my mother-in-law, have fun playing with Nico every day, and I think, you know, he paints on the side and he paints what he loves now, but then he takes time to go outside and, you know, take Nico to Griffith Park for pony rides and to the zoo, and maybe that influences paintings too.
Opened up a whole new vista, new opportunities, and whole new lives. I feel like I'm starting over again, and I like being young again.
The best part of this one is, I mean, it's a great, you know, composition and everything, but I like the fact that the rings around the flare almost look like paint, you know, oil paint. I mean, the rest of it's very articulate, and it's much finer detail than oil paint. But this sort of has an oil painting kind of ring around it that is textural, as opposed to the rest of the stuff, which is not textural. And I think that's a brilliant move of mixed media.
Oh, thank you. Well, George is a guy that appreciates art and painting. He understands a lot of the qualities that make it so wonderful. Between the movies and his mind and heart, this is what comes out of it for me. I enjoyed doing it. Darth Maul, what a character.
Yeah.
What a marvelous design, the whole concept. We want more Darth Maul.
Drew Struzan is awesome. He is the pinnacle of what I think of when I think of film posters, film marketing, and also just the kind of artwork that I want to have in my own home.
Movie poster art is one of my passions, and Drew's a big reason that I have such love for it.
I love Drew.
Drew's the last real poster artist for the movies.
I enjoy his work on movie posters. I think it's really fine art.
I've bought about 3 or 4 of those posters, so I have them hanging up in my room. My mother just rolls her eyes.
In a way, his art creates instant nostalgia for something that you've never been introduced to before.
Every time I looked up one of his posters, I'm like, that's my favorite poster. That's my favorite poster. No, that's my favorite poster.
Only Drew can do what Drew does.
And I think you can tell that he clearly, you know, puts his heart and soul into creating it.
When Drew arrives at the show, I think he's going to be a little surprised because he's going to be like, oh, I don't know if anybody really wants to come see me. And meanwhile, the convention center is going to tilt as everybody heads for, you know, his signing.
Any illustrator in this room is going to acknowledge what Drew has done as an artist and also to the industry.
He draws faster and more accurate and realistic than anybody else I've ever seen.
We would just sit there and just go through his books and just kind of like break down like his compositions, his use of color and all that stuff, and just kind of artgasm all over it, you know.
People flew here to do the show to get Drew's book.
People realize, here's an artist that's going into retirement. This could be my only opportunity to get him to sign something.
And when I'm sitting next to a booth selling his brand new book that they only have 500 copies of, and it sells out in one day, then you know Drew has some impact.
We're selling stacks of books. So yeah, I mean, this is a huge release for us.
Drew rules. The dark side loves him.
Drew, you cannot leave the industry. Gotham needs you.
Drew's the man.
Drew's the man!
How great is this artwork?
Drew Struzan, ladies and gentlemen.
When I heard he was doing this Walking Dead piece, I was just like so ecstatic.
I love this. This looks beautiful.
Drew Struzan doing zombies? Oh my God, that's cool.
Wow, yours is a lot of work. You want to see mine?
Yeah, but yours is so much more graceful.
I'm such a huge fan.
Oh, thank you.
There is a lost art in Hollywood, and that's the movie poster. And this man, who's one of our special guests at Comic-Con this year, has kept it alive for the last 30 years or so, Mr. Drew Struzan. And before we get started with the interview portion of this program, we have a special presentation for Drew that he's unaware of. For all the joy you've brought all of us in this room with all your iconic images over the years, I'm here on behalf of Comic-Con to present you with the Comic-Con Inkpot Award for Achievement in Illustration.
I'm speechless. This is really hard for me. I'm a guy that sits alone in my studio all the time. And I've seen more people now than I've seen in years. This is amazing. I thank you so much. You're so generous just to show up and to be here, to see little old me. It's beyond words.
I am his biggest fan. I just want to say thank you.
And I had no idea that people literally around the world were looking at my stuff and remembering it and collecting it and enjoying it. An artist's dream was coming true. I mean, it's neat to paint it, and that's self-satisfying. The real reward is that other people see it, look at it, enjoy it, and does all those marvelous things for them, because that really is the purpose of art. And when I became attuned to the fact that it was working, and it was really helping people and making the world a better place, then I really was again honored. Finally, I feel like I had some value, you know, that what I was working at and dedicating my life to really was doing some nice things for people, something peaceful, something beneficial. Damn, I couldn't do any more. I mean, I think I'm a success now.